tight over your ears. So take it away, Dave and Mickey.
Welcome to Dave
and Mickey's
Shiny Side Out on WZZR, coming to you from Australia for Revolution Radio on freedomslips.com. It's home to fresh, unadulterated ideas and conversations in the chat room, and a place to get your merch. That's the website, mind you. This is show number 476.
670 and 400.
100. Catch us on air, online, and on your smart device, so grab an app to listen anywhere or listen at home on a Grace Tabletop digital radio. If you missed Solaris's show, then you can catch it in the archives. But she had tonight Russ Tanner on, and they were talking about chemtrails. A lot of things dovetail between our shows, Mickey. It's a thing. But to get into the archives, it's about $5 a month. It's a Patreon subscription. Do it because you can get access to all the shows, all the hosts, everything it's on Revolution Radio, and some of them go back pretty far. I think 2018 or 2019 is how far back they go. If you want to go further back, Mecky and I also have a Patreon. We also have a YouTube channel. So yeah, if you want to be able to see some things that we talk about, we do present it on video. And if you are a friend of mine, you want to subscribe to the YouTube channel anyway. But you can watch it while you listen to it, if that makes any sense to you. Just if you start at 30 seconds late, then they'll be absolutely synchronized. You can mute and see what we see, because there is a 30-second delay on the live broadcast. Just letting you know. Anyway, Mickey and I live in Australia. You can probably tell just a little bit of an accent on my behalf. Maybe Mickey's is a bit more international sounding. There's a nice way of putting it. It's quite an unusual accent, Mickey, you have, and a lot of people comment on it to me.
I have no accent.
I'm the one with the accent.
I speak normally.
I'm the one with the accent. Look, Mickey and I, because of where we live in Australia, we've researched, discovered, and now totally acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land. And where I live, the group, you might call it a tribe, but it's incorrect. They're called mobs. So it's the 𝐫𝐞𝐯𝐿 where I live, and Mickey, where you live, it's different. Earth to Mickey.
Yeah, I have the right people that are in charge around here.
In charge, that's very nice. And we pay our respects to elders of those groups, past, present, and future. That concludes the intro. Guess what? Guess what? It's been the craziest week. I think everyone is what's that, Mickey, when you're completely over something? I mean, you're tired of the news, right? You've lost all interest.
Fatigue.
That's it. That's the one.
It's for us. It's catastrophe fatigue. We're too many catastrophes. No more. What's the next asteroid? Look, I'm not even going to watch this one. All right, asteroids. I'm not interested. I don't want to hear it. No. What is it? The sun. The sun is going supernova. You know what? Boring. So
Will the internet still be working after it does that? Well, at least for a while.
It's designed to do so.
Well, at least for a while.
Well, it depends in how many dimensions it exists. True enough, right? That's
what, the internet?
What? How many dimensions does the internet exist in? Think about that for a second, all.
It makes my brain hurt. So, where the COVID problem, our COVID fatigue. Of course, it's not accurate to suggest that it's COVID. That's only it's not the virus. That's the disease. That's what you present with. And I know I say it every week, but I still mean it just as much as the first time I mentioned it. So there are some crazy numbers coming out now, Mickey. And on the screen, I've got basically the new cases that are confirmed cases from around the world. I've got the top 10 on the screen. USA, India, Brazil, France, Turkey, Russia. You can read the rest. The India numbers, I thought, Mickey, it's silly Silly me. I thought that they'd peaked at their ability to test people. No, they've exceeded themselves by 100,000. So now it's 400,000 people in the last day. 2 days ago, these figures are confirmed figures, and there's some delay there. So 400,000 is nuts.
At the moment, what they're saying is 16% come back positive. They're about 16% of tests. Now, some experts say it's close to 30%.
Right.
Let's take 16%. Now, that's of all the people that have been tested.
Mm-hmm.
So far, about 20% of the population has tested. Now, if 20% has been tested, it means, of course, 80% have not been tested, and a large percentage will never be tested because they live, in slums, etc., etc. So I don't think we're looking at 400,000 a day at all. Those are the only ones that are tested. So by that logic,
could be a million.
400,000 times 5, really, which is 2 million.
That's right.
So 2 million daily infections, if you overlay it over the population, right? So, but maybe it's but definitely between 1 and 2 million new infections. Now, with that large petri dish, Dave, mutations will run rampant, because this particular virus, as we've seen already, has a certain proclivity towards
nice word for a Sunday evening for us.
It's a word of the week towards a mutation, because we've seen it mutates. In fact, it double mutates. It doesn't just give you one mutation. No, Mr. Danger, no. That's an ordinary virus. We are something extraordinarily different here. We give you two mutations for the price of one, and who knows how many more. Which, of course, it gives us a problem in the vaccination.
Yeah, the number of people infected times by the trillions of replications that the virus may encounter with its host during its stay, it just leads it down this path of being able to maintain a reservoir, Mickey, of mutation. The possibility of mutation is still 100%. Where we're not seeing this go away. I heard, Mickey, this week that China has now tested 90 people positively, found positively to have the Indian strain. It's like it's unique now, right? And it's so separate. This is what keeps getting me. I also heard this week that, remember how last week I think we spoke about the dark skin prevalence to having severe symptoms. That was on the news this week. It's a thing which of course, you go down all kinds of pathways when you hear things like this, and this is really not a good pathway to walk down, which is the DNA modified racially targeting variant of diseases, which in fact, believe it or not, we're going to come to it in the show cycle as part of it, but it's been outlawed. That kind of biological weapon has been outlawed. Obviously, it's been outlawed. What a shock! Outlawed.
But
like gain of function.
You can't target certain populations. But if it were true, and there's no real reason why a virus should target anyone with more pigmentation than others. It doesn't. So you got more melanin in your system. Does the virus know this? Well, clearly it must know something about your DNA because it's attacking you more severely. So I'm really concerned, because I'll be honest with you, right? I don't see an end here. I do not see an end. And the reason I'm saying that is we've seen this now for over a year, and we look at the graph. There's some graphs available. You can look at them yourselves. Starts out, March 2020. It goes. Obviously, it goes into to 2019, November, December timeframe, maybe a little bit earlier. It rises. It peaks, we think, in January of this year. We thought, oh, it's peaking, and then we saw a decline, significant decline. In fact, we saw a 50% decline in infections. Yeah. And now we then come March, or mid-end March. Now we've seen a new peak, and this peak has reached heights hitherto not reached. So we are almost reaching 1 million infections. Not quite, but almost. Whereas before, we reached
879,000.
Thereabouts. So the new peak it's about 100,000 infections higher. And again, it's only the tested people. And if we had the real numbers, it's a curve that nobody would like to see. Trust me on that.
All right, so Meki, I'm just using those stats, right? Because yes, I love stats. One thing that's to be of a great concern here is 879,000 people, and 400,000 of those is in India.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So here, the quantity of rise has no end currently. It's not going to just suddenly stop rising in India, because I think it's completely overwhelmed their medical system. They can't treat anybody. And I watched a number of separate interviews from separate channels from separate countries in the world, and some I had to use the text because I couldn't understand. It was a different language. But the consensus across all of those interviews with doctors and all those stories about the case numbers was that India, and you said this last week, and I'm confirming your words for you, Meki, and that is that they said their medical system was overwhelmed. I think it was overwhelmed at the quantity of one infection. They're overwhelmed with there isn't enough beds at all. They don't have any medications to give to anybody. There's no respirators. They've run out of oxygen. So the hydroxychloroquine, their inver-mectin, their what was the other one? Oh boy, it's done. Besides the vaccine, I'm talking here, just in treatment. The treatment, they've no treatment. And Meki, I think Thursday, we shared a video between each other. We were watching, and this with the funeral pyres in the car park of the crematorium. But now it's spilled out of there, and they're building them wherever they can.
Yep.
They're constructing.
And not only Hindus, but Muslims and Christians have also gone to cremation because they can't keep up with digging all the graves. Simple as that.
Yes. So, I mean, Meki, will there be a point at which they just give up? There's too many?
The answer is yes. So what we saw in the Middle Ages in Europe during the plague.
The Black Death, yes.
Where entire cities were depopulated, right? Now, are we getting to this here? Well, I don't think the incidence I don't think the fatality rate is quite as high, obviously, as the Black Death. This was catastrophic.
3,500 a day, apparently, according to the numbers. Oh no, 15,000. Yeah,
that's right. But on a much smaller population base. However, having said that, the sheer numbers, and look, India especially, India is 1.2, 1.3 billion. Okay, so and if people keep dying at the rate they are, and again, bear in mind that the only deaths we are informed about are the deaths that occur in hospitals. So 3,000-4,000 deaths in a hospital,
and not the people in the street, not the people at home,
so
not the people in the slums. No.
So up to 4 to 6 times higher, some experts say, is the real number, which would be between 12 and 16,000 a day. So once you've got 12 to 16,000 a day, after a week you're looking at 100,000 dead. Now the normal death rate is not that. Now bear in mind that people die of other things as well. So this is just on top of other things, right? So the normal death rate
there is also a minus of other things. And round out your idea, and I'll get to it.
No, look, all I'm saying is that eventually the system is going to collapse. There will be no more. There might be no more fuel left to have individual cremations. So you will have to, you might have to create massive funeral pyres, and just keep piling the dead on, keep the fire burning.
Community pile.
But we have to make sure the fire keeps burning.
Oh, absolutely.
Because you can't start it again because you have no more fuel, so you have to use the dead as fuel for the next dead that are coming. And I'm not being apocalyptic here.
And he's not being flippant either. These are going to be. It's like a window into what they're thinking right now.
Oh,
that's what we're talking about.
Just as an aside, and we're probably going to spend some time later, but there's some very important development that has happened in this space. Something that's sort of, well, actually, no, it is completely unprecedented. Australia, and now even the US, are moving to stopping even citizens coming back from India. And in Australia, that's under the pain of imprisonment. And there's a $66,000 fine, as well as up to 5 years imprisonment if they find that you've come from India
and traveled through other countries to get here to avoid notice.
Correct. So Doha, they closed down. But if you've been in India the last 2 weeks and you come here, then a prison sentence awaits you. Now, America, surprisingly, is moving in the same direction. Now, I had an interview with someone representing the Indian community, and he said, that's just unprecedented and it's unheard of. When America was in a bad shape, nobody talked about that. And now the situation is slightly different because the infection rate in America was never, ever this high.
That's correct.
The medical care system in America is, even though it's not awesome, it's still, bucket loads better than in India. And the sheer number of Indians that are living in diaspora, out of their country is massive. So the travel from the States was relatively insignificant. The travel that's coming out of India into the world is significant. There are many, many, many Indians living abroad, working abroad. Of course, still very strong ties to their home country, as they should do. But this is a different situation. I mean, because India is not going to be the last country that this is going to happen to. But India, and this is what I said from the start of the pandemic, India is the one place that worries me the most. I've been there. I've seen it.
Yeah.
And the conditions in India, the way India functions as a country, I didn't think they would go well in a scenario like this. I didn't think there would be a good outcome, and there isn't. And there are many reasons for that. It is really, really disturbing. And there are other countries like India, not as big as India, but like India, where this could happen as well. So this is the first travel ban. And I think this travel ban is not going to be lifted for a very long time. Not for a very long time.
So Meki, to compare, using your comparison phrasing, America peaked at 300,000 confirmed publicly announced test cases, right? They close to twice. The average height of their grand infections was 250,000 a day, but when you look at 200,000 was a firm base through that peak, and otherwise they've had four. They're coming off their fourth peak of high amounts of infection. So that's the US I'm talking about. However, India, and this is what the messaging has been from all of the news outlets that I've seen. Whereas, India got to 100,000. It was they tried to keep it below the curve below the line. You know what I mean? Flatten the curve. Do you remember those messages initially?
Flatten. Yeah. That was about survival, back in the day.
Yeah. So flatten the curve was to try to keep the numbers low enough so we can treat you in hospital.
Yep, that's it. And
that might very well have been successful to a certain extent within India when it was at 100,000 per day, but 400,000 not even a chance.
No.
So I can imagine at the extent at which this is currently spreading or being able to be tested, it's really the deaths that are driving the tests. Because if people weren't dying, no one would be bothered to get tested.
That's right.
The sheer luck that there is this many people being at least presented to hospitals or testing centres is extraordinary in a country where a general broadcast message from the government may not be held with the highest regard or heard by the most people. So I still think that you're right. I think that there's way more people that are infected by this. Now, I wanted to just circle back to what does it look like on the global deaths? Can we see the spike? Now, the last time Meki and I looked, there wasn't a spike that showed this many people dying from something as a big spike. They were as flat as they've ever been. Most of the curves, I think we might see some differences this time around on these new peaks. But what was being replaced by all of the other causes of death were our isolation, our not getting about and less heart attacks and all of the things that were then associated with not going outdoors, not, you know, putting too much pressure on your own systems. What we did see was vitamin D deficiencies because we were all locked inside, and we, you know, car accidents dropped off, the flu dropped off almost to be non-existent. Wasn't quite, but it was close. All of those other causes of death really waned. So with the rise of these ones, the curve was pretty flat in as far as, you know, because when this started, when this broke, well, like more than a year ago, and we started saying, well, we should be able to see these death spikes. And they're just not showing up.
There's a really interesting webpage I urge everybody to go to if you're interested in this. It's called ourworldindata.org, excess mortality COVID, and I'll put it into the chat.
And paste it to me, and I'll share it to the audience as well.
There you go, buddy. Yeah, here you go. This is really interesting, and there's a mapping here, and it maps the excess mortality. So 0 is the baseline, it's just a normal number of deaths, if you will. And Mexico, for example, is above 150% in excess mortality, right? Brazil is just scratching 100% excess mortality. Japan is slightly above. Russia is 50% excess mortality, for example. For example, right? So there are people.
So Japan barely even showed.
Yeah, Japan barely even showed. Death rate. If you look at the death rate in Japan, it's relatively low, and they're having a fairly good handle on it, I guess. Yeah. I guess, but you know, who knows? But it's really it's really this excess mortality that you're interested in. As Prawn put in the chat room, and I don't know if this is true, but Prawn in the chat room said there are I think 38,000 people that die in India every day. I think that sounds about right. But if you add 16,000 additional deaths to that, which is roughly another 40 or 45%, your normal systems will break down because you're dealing with a flood of deaths, right? Plus potentially more deaths because people couldn't get treatment for normal stuff.
Oh, you can add India if it were on the list.
Yes. Yes. So look, it is really right. It is a problem. It is a problem that and this will have a big impact on a lot of things. Whenever you've got a mass dying like this, it's the wars are no different. You know, there's always a massive reconstructive effort afterwards, right? And what normally happens is that there's a massive increase in births as well after wars. So surprisingly, male births are very high after you have a war. But here I'm not sure because we understand that long COVID, has a detrimental effect on male fertility. And it now seems that it also causes blood clots, specifically in younger women, as do the vaccines. They cause blood clots in younger women. Not enough to warrant alarm quite yet on a global scale, but enough to worry on an individual level.
Becky, I also was watching that it was a lady who took the vaccine and then became a paraplegic.
Yeah. Okay, again,
she'd already had the virus prior, and she recovered from that. And then she thought, oh, look, there's no better thing. I'll go and get the jab now, right? So I'll have my vaccine. And then she did. And now it's damaged her spinal column.
Yeah.
Her body hit this. Remember, the second phage that does the cleanup has gone and attacked it. So crazy. At some point, there must be. You must have to weigh this up in your own mind. I know in Australia, for everyone out there, Australia it's voluntary. You don't have to get the vaccine. It's free. There you go. Pfizer was reserved in Australia for, all of their frontline workers, their military, and a whole bunch of, all the people you need to still be there. But the AZ one, without saying the full name, we had for everybody else other than those. But now that's kind of, it's reduced in number and we're trying to give it away. to all of the developing nations around us, because it looks like we won't be requiring it any longer. Over 50, we can let those people go, can't we, Mackie? Over 50s, right? So,
Sure.
so yeah, we'll keep giving it to them, but really we want to keep the young people alive now. So, other countries have paused the AZ, and some have paused and talking about pausing the Pfizer one. I'm just, for me, struggling to summon up a decision on it. Put me at the back of the queue, I'll wait a bit longer. Thank you very much, is my kind of way of thinking now. I was completely happy, man. I can't believe that I wanted the Pfizer one so quickly. I know that the tech that's involved in it, but now I've started listening to people and doctors around the world, and I think maybe best I don't, just for the time being. That's just me. Not your inner thoughts. I'm not thinking for you. You make your own decisions.
No, absolutely. There's one interesting thing here, which I'm just looking at the graph here for the excess mortality, and this is for the United States, and they're comparing 2015, 2018, 2016, 2019, 2017, 2021. Of course, not a lot of data quite yet, but 2020. The average deaths is around, let's call it about, it normalizes between 50 and 55,000. That's about how many people die in the States, between 50 and 50. That's what it looks like there, right? And I don't know if this is a daily figure or not, might be a monthly figure. But in 2020, the number is easily 30% higher. At like for April, so okay, this is I'll just give you just now the statistic right now. Okay, December 27, 2020, right? 82,000 people died. In 2015, the same time, same day, 52,000. 2018, 56,000. The average from 2015 and 2019 was 57,000 people a day. Between 2015 and 2019, okay, on that day. On December 27, 2020, 82,000. So 30,000 people more, roughly, than the average of the preceding 4 years. That's the impact that we're seeing here, right? I'm not saying this is all COVID, but these are deaths that are related to COVID and COVID-induced conditions. So if you couldn't get a bed, or the ambulance couldn't get to you, or whatever it might have been.
Yeah, whatever the case, yeah.
And India is in much worse shape, in much worse shape than the States from a health perspective, right? The health system is woefully inadequate, and apparently there was an expert on the BBC the other day, and they said that for years now they have underspent significantly in this, and now people they don't get the care. Full stop.
Wow. So, Mackie, one thing we haven't spoken about yet is the case fatality rate.
Yes.
And globally, it's 3.44% now, having gone all the way through the virus from the beginning in November, whatever, all right, 2019 to now.
Yep.
That's the total, and it's dropping, and it's still dropping. I think we might see it fishhook or hockey stick its way back up again, because of the amount of infection and death percentage, the increase we're going to see from India.
Yeah.
Because the treatment is what brought it down around the world.
That is correct. And now that there is no treatment, again, bear in mind, these are only numbers that we get of India from hospitals. Right? I reckon it's about probably, to be conservative, 4 times as high number of deaths, which makes it about 16,000 a day. 16,000 a day, just COVID-related deaths. So I think you're right, but the unfortunate thing is, well, maybe the fortunate thing, we will not know any of this until 5-6 years down the track. We won't know it.
The other thing is, what we'd be looking at then is that the reduction in the birth rates will be lower as well. So not just, they use the term endemic again this week to describe it, like it's just not going to go away. Well, you know what? If you were all like Australia and played whack-a-mole and, isolated and cut your borders, not easy when you're you're landlocked, right? But when you're an island with a moat, is what we've got. We have a certain amount of control, and which has been our only savior through this.
Right.
So we're lucky in a good position for this, and I would really struggle if we were in a place like the US because of this a north and a south border. I mean, what you just have to close it off and build big camps for people to prove that they don't have the virus to be able to then enter. You need those isolation zones around you for that, and if you don't, it stays in it as an endemic, and it continues to get to be able to mutate, and then it becomes less effective from the vaccines, and the vaccines have to keep morphing to do it, and then you're chasing ghosts by the end of that, because it'll be mutating so fast in a global population where everyone's infected all the time that we won't be able to ever stop it.
And see, there's actually one aspect to this which is making this a lot worse. What Dave has outlined just now is absolutely correct. But what we've seen with this disease, Dave, is that it doesn't get better. So diseases, people build up certain immunities to the disease, and that's called herd immunity, right? And once you've got a certain immunity, you pretty much have it. I mean, people might still get sick and die, but it's really going to be the outside chance. With this thing, there's no herd immunity, and not only that, the disease seems to get worse. So in each iteration that we get, each mutation, each change, and it's changing fast, is worse than the variant before, right? So forget about the vaccines not working or working. That's beside the point for now. The point is that this disease is getting worse, right? It's a lot of diseases, and this is sort of the sentiment that people have. We come to an agreement, like the body and the disease come to an agreement or an understanding where like in a common cold, everybody lives more or less. Whereas with this disease, there doesn't seem to be an understanding like this, right? I mean, this thing is getting worse. It seems to affect younger people a lot more, right, than before. Mm-hmm. It is a lot more infectious, and it also seems to be more severe than the initial disease. So add to that what Dave said, and this thing could stick around for a long time and just get worse.
Yeah, well, currently we're seeing it getting worse. Currently, the mutations, we don't see the mutation. I'm just going to put this out there. We don't see the mutations, Mickey, that make it less transmissible. We don't see that. We don't see the mutations, because the result of that is it just dies with the host eventually, right? The other thing is we don't see it being less severe. Is the 3.4% case fatality rate driven purely by the virus mutating itself to be less severe, or is it medical assistance? And we've correlated the medical assistance and all the treatments that have brought down the case fatality rate over time. One thing, Maggie, if you had to do this intentionally, if you had to make a virus, you choose all the viruses in the world to start doing gain of function on, and you would choose one if your intention was to release it to the public to basically drop the population to Agenda 21 and 500 million in the world. The first thing you'd choose from a list of options. Oh, I want a virus that we can't our bodies can't currently prevent. So, what about just a common cold? We the flu virus, not a common cold, flu. Yeah, let's choose that. Great. So what can we do to it? Oh, we can make it so its payload is, it's got very little checksum in its replication. So that's why they had to go with a virus and not a self-contained organism, because that would have a checksum in its DNA that only allows it to stay the same. We see the same with chickenpox. You can be inoculated and for the rest of your life, you're okay against it. Polio, it doesn't mutate away from being polio to something else. So the vaccine, because we're given broken parts of the vaccine and the body can find it really easy. This is morphing. And we made a comparison, one of the other shows, Mickey, about HIV, in that it's incredibly difficult to stop because our body has to make it. Yeah, in the HIV, it takes your immune system and starts to replicate itself. We're shutting down your immune system in the same time, right? So we're seeing this virus. It uses our own body's mechanism to replicate itself, which is ingenious. It couldn't have ever started like. It's very odd that something become a symbiont in such a way, and be so virulent at the same time. So for something to require us as a host to kill us eventually, it just seems the stupidest thing. But hey, these things exist. So you want to make it highly transmissible. Tick, that's another choice. You want to make it so it lasts a long time and is spreadable before it shows up on you. Yeah, and you want it, for the most part, to move from host to host, and people don't even know. So that's asymptomatic. So it has all the hallmarks of a great design. Is what it has, and having it mutate so regularly into something where the spike protein changes, and yet it's still able to get the job done. One more step away, like a democracy turning into fascism, is only just a couple of rules. And I've mentioned this to one of my friends who I know is in the chat. This is the thing. We've got a virus who's only got 3 proteins in the spike. If it modifies all of them, it can no longer open up the cell to go in and replicate, effectively killing its own future. And this is what we've got. We've got a virus that's now mutated 2 of those proteins and is still completely able to get about and do its business. The global population drop, if you know the azoospermia studies that we presented in the last 2 shows, if that comes about and it's long lasting, because we have no long COVID studies yet, we're still in the middle of it, and it does result in there being very few people on the planet. Of course, if we let this thing just become an endemic wherever we live, it's here forever. No sperm production. Good luck with that. I think they'll have like the prize bull humans to replicate, you know, and they'll raid all the sperm banks trying to keep the population going. One of the last point, Maggie, I'll hand it back to you. I'll get off my soapbox. But one of the things that all of the abductees talk about, not all of them, some, speak about the aliens coming from the future back here to actually recover DNA so they can avoid, that was back then, so they can avoid the problems that happened, and we are them. That's what some people say they've been told by the aliens. So right now, could this be that point at which we're all done for, where our civilization has now got an hourglass? We're heading into the hourglass, where there's only going to be very little genetic diversity exiting this hourglass event. Good question. And back to you in the studio, Mickey.
Sorry, buddy, I was muted. Look, I would say that's definitely possible. Crisis points, inflections do happen, and you know where everything seems to start again. And sometimes there's intervention. We know if you are an avid religious scholar, okay, and you put the religious aside for a second and just look at what you know and have learned. You go to the religious text and you see interference all the time. You see interference at the Great Flood event, right? In the shape of saving some and condemning others. Now, that's a massive crisis point, right? Where the entire civilization that existed at that time, or civilizations for that matter, on the surface, were wiped out, completely gone, and a few survived only. And we've spent a lot of time discussing the flood myths, right? But clearly there was intervention. Okay, now where did it come from? As Dave just postulated, could it be that it was, from the future? Look, we have to take a step back. As a people, human beings have accomplished incredible things, and we've accomplished things that we thought at one time completely impossible. Right? There's no heavier than air flight. It can't do it. Can't be done. Trains can't go faster than 80 miles an hour. You can't go to the moon. You can't travel in space, etc., etc., etc. So all the things we've accomplished, we were always told, no, you can't do that. The Earth is not round. Etc., etc., etc. It doesn't. The sun spins around the Earth rather than the Earth around the sun, etc., etc., etc. You keep on going, and now. We think of ourselves at this point as different. We think, oh, no, we are different. We know everything. Well, the answer is no. Every time that people made assertions around what was possible, what was not possible, what was, a crazy talk and what was something that is acceptable, they all thought the same. No, I'm the reasonable person. We've learned all of this and we know what it is. Okay, this was the mindset. It's the same mindset we have today. People that said, oh, no, the Earth is flat, right? And the sun is not the center of the universe, but the Earth is. They had the same mindset we have today. They thought they were right because they had, we've got all the knowledge that we can possibly ever get. Our head is full. Thank you very much. I'm going home. We are no different. So we understand that we're saying things like, oh, time travel, that's just crazy talk, or life in outer space, like on other planets. That's just not likely. And even if there were life on other planets. It's impossible to get you because, again, the speed of light is the universal speed limit. Okay, these are some postulations we like to make. We know for a fact, though. We know for a fact that we don't really know what's going on. We have no idea. Right? We say a lot of, oh, yeah, this is going on, that's going on. So no. So first of all, in physics, if you look at physics, theoretical physics, just by itself, just the math of it, time does not have a direction. As a variable, okay, you can move forward in time, backward in time, sideways in time. You can do whatever you want. Physics doesn't care. The mathematics of physics, okay? Mm-hmm. So for starters, okay? Secondly, is the speed of light truly the speed limit for the universe? Well, this is where it gets interesting.
I don't think it is.
Well, exactly. So first of all, light itself, okay, does slow down. Okay, light doesn't travel at a constant speed for starters. Boom. Okay, let's just be clear on that. Mm-hmm. Second, Nikola Tesla, who is generally acknowledged to be a genius of almost unequal proportions, said that he, I think, almost doubled the speed of light when he sent an electric signal around the world. Okay, that's what he said he did. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Is he right? Is he not? I don't know, but it certainly bears investigation. But amongst all the scientists in the world, right, of all the things that we have access to, we don't have access to a lot of his research. So, is it possible?
Even all this time afterwards.
Even all this time afterwards. So is it possible that people from the future, or a future, let's be clear here, have come and traveled here? Sure. Could they have come from another dimension? When I say another dimension, I mean another parallel world line, potentially. The answer is yes, sure. Could they have come from the past? Sure. Mm-hmm. Are they demons from hell? Hey, I don't know. Maybe. Okay. Are they true extraterrestrials, meaning they're not off this earth? Sure. Mm. Are they inner earthers? Certainly, could be.
Do they live on the moon or any other place in the solar system?
The point I'm trying to make here is we have lost, and when I say we, I'm talking about the establishment, or maybe they deliberately do this. We have lost the ability to accept all possibilities as possibilities until we know what it is. So we arbitrarily seal off certain areas of research. We close our mind to certain possibilities, and that's deliberate. That's called indoctrination, and we are suffering from it, right? Welcome to the panopticon where you police yourself. So why though? We don't know. We don't know. We can say, well, this is likely and that's less likely, and I've got no problem with that. But if I say, oh, that's how it is and that's impossible, that's a very, very thin sheet of ice you're walking on. Saying impossible puts you right on the outer with our experience in the past. Anybody who ever said impossible has been proven wrong, pretty much. Okay? So why is it then that we are so adamant to completely deny the possibility of something extraordinary happening? because it scares us. And again, we have been indoctrinated. We have been taught to think a certain way. You have to free your mind before you can free everything else. Free your mind and your body will follow. I think the song goes, free your mind, the rest will follow.
That's right.
But this is really an important point to take away. You cannot dismiss something because it doesn't fit in your worldview. The Wright brothers, by rights, no pun intended, should never have been able to fly because their craft was heavier than air. The Montgolfier brothers, some 300 years earlier,
yeah, the hot balloon people.
Yeah, hot balloon people. So, it's impossible. This thing will never fly, but it did. Because they realized that hot air rises, because hot air is less dense than cold air.
So, Mickey, my grandmother told me about the trains when they were about to do a test of the world's then fastest locomotive, 12 miles an hour.
Hold on, jets!
It was estimated that with a window open on both sides of the train, all of the oxygen would be sucked out of the train and everyone would die of asphyxia. That was what they thought.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Look, but when they first had when they conducted the first atmospheric atomic tests, I should say, some of the scientists thought, well, we might set the atmosphere alight.
The underwater one, they said it might cause a chain reaction, which deletes all the water off the planet.
Possible, yeah. All these things, they were possibilities. It didn't happen. I mean, lucky, I guess. Maybe in some timelines it did. Who knows? But the point is, we are constantly correcting ourselves. We're constantly error correcting. We make a wrong statement. Okay, we've got to say something else, and because we found out the truth is actually this. We say things with certainty all the time. You know why? Because people like certainty. You know what? People that know this say things with certainty all the time because they are the people that are the experts. And that's how you make a living. Okay? If you can style yourself as the expert. And I went to see, what was his name? The African-American scientist. I forget his name now. He did the new Cosmos series. Anyway.
Yes, Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Neil deGrasse Tyson. Yeah, that's it. Exactly. So I went to see. My brother bought me a ticket. I think I've spoken about this before, and I was so underwhelmed. I can't even begin to explain how underwhelmed I was by him on stage. He had a fanboy with him interviewing him, and he was telling stories about math, and he was talking about how long a trip to the moon was. He was adding up things. It's that many saucer cups or whatever. It doesn't really matter, right? But he had done it before, obviously, so it wasn't it wasn't mental math he was doing, and he was just giving me motherhood statements. I'm not impressed, and then I've started watching his stuff. I'm still not impressed. Yeah, he's probably good at math and physics, but his mind, I'm sorry, he's very marketable. He's a good presenter, and that's good for him. But he has started himself as the expert, and other people have done that.
Yeah, he's also mainstreamed his info.
Yeah, completely.
There's a big change on a certain year where he suddenly just played the game.
Because that's where the money is. That's where the security is. Okay?
That's right.
And I get it. I'm not putting him down. Don't get me wrong.
No, likewise.
But the point is that's what you need to do, and you're holding that position of expertise for that generation or that year or that decade or whatever it might be until we know more, until there's incontrovertible evidence that whatever we believed before is completely wrong. I told you guys the story about Neanderthal. There was the best example of a scientist eating humble pie. She said, this lady, 10 years ago, 2010, Neanderthal is a precursor to Homo sapiens. Neanderthal died out.
That's right, yeah.
And Homo sapiens came along and blah, blah, blah. Now we know, and this is because of DNA, right? So we do a DNA testing and whatnot, so we find out, no, it's not true at all. In fact, we find out more and more as we go along. What we found out when we tested our DNA is that, we have Neanderthal DNA in us, which means we interbred, which means they weren't our ancestors per se. So they were there. They were our contemporaries, peers. We interbred with them. They were us. They were not someone else. They were us.
And the Florensis as well, Mickey, and there's a whole bunch of others. Yes.
Yeah. Florensis, Denisovan. There's a couple others which we haven't identified, but we have DNA fragments in our DNA. So the point is that we always, the people in the know that want to make the money and be the experts, they talk from a position of I know best, you shut up. And that, of course, is completely untenable in science. Right? Oh, no, peer review, this and peer review that. No, I'm sorry. The peer review system is skewed. A lot of things don't even make it to peer review because no one studies them. Because they know if they study that, or if they research this, or if they have opinion on another thing, the career is over.
It's right.
Done. Unless you're independently wealthy. And that's what I love about Jules Verne. You know, all his protagonists, for the most part, are independently wealthy.
That's right.
Phileas Fogg, very mysterious. In fact, the very first page of in 80 Days Around the World talks about the mysteriousness, the complete, occult nature of Phileas Fogg. We don't know anything about him. We don't know how he makes his money. You know, he's not in politics. He doesn't do this, he doesn't that. But he doesn't go to work, and he must have lots and lots of cash, which he does, and he wages it all on the fact that he can make it around the world in 80 days. Captain Nemo, for all the hardships he suffered, because of his science and people that tried to steal from him, he then became is independently wealthy as well. He's got his own submarine, his own base, etc., etc. Most of the protagonists in Jules Verne's novels are independently wealthy. That's why they can do the things they do, the interesting stuff, the groundbreaking stuff, the explorations, etc., etc., etc. But these days, I guess. I don't know. Is it Tesla guy? What's his name? Elon Musk. He comes close to that kind of thing, I guess. James Cameron with his exploration of the oceans and things like that. So he built that submarine, specifically to look at the Titanic. So you have to be independently wealthy in order to push forward, and you can't be hampered by the establishment. Schliemann, who found Troy, wasn't hampered by the establishment because he was an amateur. Every time we have a massive breakthrough, it is usually by someone who is not encumbered by the establishment.
That's absolutely correct.
And transmission.
Oh, yes, absolutely, Mackie. Yeah, I completely agree. This is the hard part, that not only the discoveries, but innovation. So innovation, from a science perspective, it's a closed book. You close the book, there's nothing more to learn. Yeah, you'll do research on something that it may not even have an outcome for your whole life. But it's the people who haven't learned yet that there's a glass ceiling and that you're able to just create something. Because, oh no, you can't do that. You can't just make stuff up. They said they've found a fifth force now in the Large Hadron Collider. That's a brand new breaking science. Yeah. They need more certainty around it. Like they're at 1 in 30,000 or 32,000, significance, and they need to go to 1 in 14 million or some crazy whatever
number.
It is. Yeah.
But they're super excited because that it shouldn't happen. They have no idea why it's happening, which goes to the point we raised earlier. We really don't know. That's not something to be scared of. That's exciting. We don't know. Wow.
We smashed 2 rocks together, Mackie, and some dust came off. What is it?
Whoa, I don't know.
Don't know.
It's the breath of God. Shut up.
But sometimes, Mackie, just before the music starts, it does feel like 2001 with the monkeys in the bone. Right?
I know, right?
Yeah, that's science. That's our science right there.
That's the music.
Look, it's only a short break. We'll catch you on the other side of this. If you listen to the YouTube, we'll begin a new or commence a new stream. So, take the time during the break to donate. And you've listened to the first hour of Dave and Mackie's Shiny Side Out. Like, share, and subscribe.
Listen to Revolution Radio.